Good evening and welcome to TDM Talk Show. I'm your host, Joana Freitas. Joining us today is Thomas Lim, a filmmaker. Thomas Lim has written and directed 5 movies, 2 of them here in Macau, where he's also lived. Thomas Lim is also an actor, having lead roles in Chinese TV drama series, musicals, and movies. Thomas Lim, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being with us here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I was going to start for the fact that you've lived here. It's not your first time in Macau, so tell us a little bit about your relationship with this city.
So Macau is a really special place to me. It's a special place in my heart. I consider it my filmmaking home. So I've only made 2 feature films. I've made several films, but 2 feature films, and both of them were set in Macau. Both of them were conceived and set in Macau, and the community has been very supportive of my films, which has essentially given me a filmmaking career. So I'm really appreciative of Macau and its continued support of my work, and I hope to make yet another film, at least in Macau, in the coming years. Yeah.
The first time you came here was 2008?
The first time I came here as a tourist was 2002. So that was 16 years ago, way before the casino boom in Macau. Yeah.
And when you came here the first time versus when you moved here, which was in 2008,
correct.
What did you see in this city that told you that this could be a good scenery for a movie?
So in 2002, what happened was I was backpacking all over East Asia, and I passed by Macau, and that was my first time in Macau. Macau was a completely different place at that time than now, and I kept coming back almost every year. So in 2008, I finally moved here from living in Beijing for 4 years. And at the time, the reason I moved here was I wanted to be a filmmaker. So previously, before that, I was an actor. I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I thought that Macau offered me an opportunity to make films in a place where, at the time at least, very few films were made. So I thought perhaps that could attract more attention from the outside audience to kind of look at the Macau-made film. So I came here. When I came here, I already had a group of theater friends, so they were very warm and very inviting. So I came here with their support, and I came here. I wrote the script for Roulette City, my first film, and I filmed it here. And my filmmaking career grew from there.
The first movie, the first film, Roulette City, it is a little bit related with the casinos, although it's not exactly connected to it. Is there specific places in Macau that you consider that have to be on a movie? Are the casinos one of them?
Well, the reason why, speaking of casinos, I always say this, like the outside world know of Macau as a casino city, just like we all know of Vegas as a casino city. So I know that a lot of local Macau filmmakers, they try to avoid the casino image in their films, but for me, I would rather use it because that's an entry point for international audience to kind of become curious about my film. So my stories are always not completely related to gambling, but I will use the casino city of Macau as a backdrop to invite audiences into the story. And me coming from the outside world, I'm from Singapore, so me coming from the outside world, see that as an advantage that Macau has, because the world knows of Macau in that manner. So even in my second film, Sea of Mirrors, I use Macau as a glittering. So Macau on the outside looks very glittery, a lot of lights. It looks like a place that's got a lot of fun, a lot of wealth. So I use that image of Macau again as the backdrop of the story.
Is there any other specific places that you like to show in your movies?
I think actually Kola Wan looks very good to me. So Kola Wan and the Macau Peninsula, these 2 places in particular look very attractive to me. It's got a lot of texture. I always say this, that Macau has a very strong presence in front of the lens, in front of the camera.
Cinematic.
Very cinematic. So it's like everywhere you point the camera, it looks like a film set. So that's a huge advantage for filmmakers, especially with limited resources. So like in other cities where it's more glossy and it's more smooth and very modern, sometimes you have to art direct it a lot more for it to look good on screen. So Macau has that natural ability to already look good on screen. So So that's very attractive point for me.
Have you ever talked to someone that watched one of your movies filmed here in Macau, and well, at least Roulette City, because this Sea of Mirrors is now going to debut,
Yeah.
but and told you something like, I didn't know Macau was like this or like that. Have you had that experience before?
Yeah, a lot of audiences tell me that. So Roulette City first commercially premiered in Japan, and Roulette City had no famous actors in it, but Macau, the city, was the famous thing that was in the film. So a lot of Japanese audience, like, they didn't even know that there were like people living in Macau. So it's like, because they don't think about it. So when they think
Yeah.
about Macau, they think like it's just casinos and
A
tourists.
small island with casinos where people go
Yeah,
to
just to
play
gamble.
and gamble and then go go home.
Yes. So to them, it's like it's even a new thing to them to think like there are people living in Macau. So that alone amazed them, and to have films coming out of Macau, that was very special. That was very unique for them to watch. So I always say like Macau films can sort of travel far because of Macau, the location itself. Yeah.
The first feature you wrote, we were talking about, was in 2008, Roulette City.
Yeah.
Before we go there, I would like to know something more about you. You've never studied film.
No.
What did you study? How did you end up here?
So I first got involved with the arts as a theater actor. So it was in Singapore when I was about 20 years old. And it was in my second year at university, and my classes were kind of spaced out. I had a lot of free time. So I wanted to find something interesting to do. And by coincidence, I found an audition on the newspaper, which was very rare at the time. And I went for the audition, I got accepted, and within 3 months, I started to perform professionally at theater companies in Singapore. So I became a theater actor while I was still in university.
While you were studying?
Still in university.
Finance?
Yes, I was studying finance in Singapore. You couldn't go wrong with finance in Singapore. So, and then by the time I finished university, I had already acted professionally for 2 years. So after that, I decided that I was going to take it seriously, and I applied for a scholarship, and I got a scholarship to go to the UK to study theater. And I did that while I was in the UK. I found that as a Singaporean Chinese person, I wasn't unique enough on the international stage, meaning that I had a very close Korean friend and a Japanese friend in London at the time. They had something unique and distinct from their culture to offer to the international stage that I felt I didn't have, because my English might be better than theirs, but Singapore as a country, as a culture, is not very unique. It's not distinctly Chinese, and neither is it distinctly Malay nor Indian. So it's somewhere in between of everything. And perhaps that became, in my eyes, a bit of a flaw in terms of me not having something unique to offer to the international world, to the international audience.
Did you get that perception from what people told you in the UK?
It's just from my own observation. And so because of that, I decided that I was going to go to China. So, and then the next thing I did was I moved to China. And after a year of being in China, I started to act in TV and films there. So
what was the unique thing that you had in China that you didn't have in the UK?
So I was trying to be more Chinese by going to China.
Okay.
I was trying to speak better Mandarin, and also because I'm Chinese by ethnicity, so I thought that I should be more Chinese in order to have more value on the international stage. And I still feel that way today, that my Mandarin improved a lot when I was in China, and I even acted in several Chinese TV series. So that gave me the opportunity to be exposed to a bigger market. So Beijing, at the time I saw Beijing as the highest platform in the Chinese world. It was already the case at the time, now even more. So now Beijing is definitely like the biggest platform in the Chinese world, probably in East Asia.
Is there where you're based now, or are you still in LA?
Now I'm in LA. So at that time I was in Beijing. Yeah, that was before 2008.
Yeah, and there you had the experience as an actor. How many movies do you remember? Do you recall how many movies you made? And which ones you had the lead role?
I was acting for TV series. I did several leads. For movies, I started by doing roles in co-productions at the time. They were smaller roles, and through them, I got to know Chinese TV productions, and I did bigger roles on Chinese TV. And after 4 years of being in Beijing, I decided that being an actor always forces me to be in a passive position, because that's the nature of an actor's job. So you have to rely on your agent most of the time. If an actor is too aggressive, it is easily seen as being desperate, and that's a turn-off for potential directors or producers that might hire you. So I didn't like being like passive most of the time. So by nature, I like being more proactive. So I started to think that maybe I should make my own films. And I was also influenced by a group of Malaysian and Chinese and Singaporean filmmakers around me at the time. They were around the same age as me, and they started to make their low-budget films using very cheap cameras. And I decided that maybe I'll do the same. So I moved away from Beijing, and I was considering between Hong Kong and Macau at the time. At the time, Macau was a lot cheaper than Hong Kong. So I decided that it was going to be Macau, and so I came here.
Did you ever have been on set of a movie in China and think, I would do this differently, I would direct this different? Was that one of the things that you thought, okay, I have to do this, I have to direct a movie, not only act in one of them?
Yes, towards the end of my Beijing days, like more and more I felt like I wanted to have more creative control of the story and of the production. And that inspired me, that motivated me to start pursuing the path of being a director. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant actually, but then I just had the desire to start being more creatively involved in the storytelling. Yeah.
From when you jump to filmmaking, that's when Roulette City happens here in Macau. Did starting as an actor help somehow, or how did you find the time and the ability and the organization skills to write a feature movie for the first time here in Macau, after being an actor?
Yeah. So prior to Roulette City, I was only an actor, and I didn't know the several different stages of filmmaking. And Roulette City was essentially like my film school. So I learned filmmaking through making Roulette City. So when I was writing the script, to be honest, now in hindsight, looking back, I probably didn't know what I was writing. So I didn't even know like the proper format of writing a script. But fortunately for me, my cinematographer, his name is Sam. He's an Australian friend of mine, and he lived in Beijing while I lived in Beijing too. We were best friends, and he had made 1 or 2 independent, low-budget films before. So he was the cinematographer of Roulette City. He helped me out a lot. Like he taught me a lot as we were filming, and with his help, I managed to finish the film. I learned the several stages of filmmaking from making Roulette City. For example, like even editing, I picked up editing skills from making Roulette City, and now I can edit like an entire film on my own. Now I wouldn't edit a film that I wrote and direct because I would know the material too well. But if I had to, I would be able to. So I learned a lot of skills from and editing skills helped me in directing as well, because then I wouldn't shoot stuff that I wouldn't need in the editing room. So stuff like that. So I learned a lot through just making Roulette City on a low budget.
How do you go and risk it all by you're still learning how to be a director and writing a feature movie, but you choose to not only to do one, but also launch it. So why risking it like that? What did you feel at the time to say, okay, I'm going to launch this and see what happens, or you were sure that the movie was going to have a good feedback?
You mean launch Roulette City?
Yes.
Well, I think when you make a feature film, you have to release it. I think only when you make short films, and if it's not very good, maybe you can keep quiet about it and not let anybody know that you have made that. Because short films take a lot shorter time to make. So feature films are seen as finished products. So feature films take a long time to make, and it took me a long time to finish Roulette City. And by then, a lot of people already knew I was making the film. So I couldn't not release the film. And I was kind of lucky to be able to release it kind of in a bigger scale in Japan, in the cinemas in Japan first, and then in Singapore, and then in Macau. For a low-budget film like Roulette City, I was very lucky to get that support from the cinemas and then from the press, and that turned my life around. That gave me a filmmaking career and allowed me to live in the United States now.
Did the screening in Japan, in the cinemas in Japan, it just happened coincidentally, or you had planned to be released in Japan and not in Macau? How was the process?
No, so to be honest, like for a year after I finished Roulette City, the only screening opportunities I had were at festivals. And I've always wanted, as a filmmaker, even today, I've always wanted like a cinema release. To me, a movie is made for the big screen, and the most ideally is made for a commercial release. So for about a year, I didn't have any opportunities for commercial release, but then I moved to Japan. And when I moved to Japan, I was introduced to a producer, and the stars aligned, and it got a release through the producer's help and a lot of other different factors coming together. Yeah.
When you talk about the Roulette City, you mentioned the budget. Is the money a big problem or a big obstacle or a big factor per se in the making of a movie?
In the making of Roulette City or in the making of any movie?
Generally.
Oh yes, of course. So money is always the big factor when it comes to making movie, and money is always not enough, no matter what scale of a movie you're making. So I always feel like as a filmmaker, your job is to make full use of your resources and achieve more than what your resources can provide for you, no matter what your resources are. So at a lower level resource, like you can make a smaller film, and then if you have more resources, you can make a bigger film. Money also dictates what kind of reach I feel like money also dictates what kind of reach the film has in terms of reaching its audience, because like marketing and publicity costs a lot of money. And sometimes even just putting it into cinema may cost a lot of money. So not only in the production, but then in the reaching out to the audience stage, money is also very important. And sometimes I kind of feel like your film is being judged always by what box office it has, and also what kind of reach it has in terms of how many audience has seen it, how many countries or how many territories have released it.
How much is making in ticketing?
Yeah.
That's like a big thing when people announce a movie, is like,
Yeah.
right?
Well, for commercial movies, they always look at how much it makes in terms of profit. But then for like more non-commercial movies or art house movies or festival style movies, it's more like how many awards you got, how many festivals it got into, and how many countries it got a release, it got a commercial release. And it's always judged by that. And people look at that more than actually watch your film. So well, that's the filmmaking world.
How is there any other obstacle that is on the same framework as money, or is money actually just the main one? Did you feel, for example, for Sea of Mirrors, which is going to debut tomorrow, here in Macau? If I'm correct, you had half of the funds that you needed for the movie when you started doing it. So how do you control that situation?
Well, for me, I feel like I dared to do that because I know myself. So once I start something, I will definitely finish it, even if it means taking a long time or it being a very difficult process. So I always, like for Sea of Mirrors, I started when I had like less than half of the intended budget, because I believe if I waited, maybe the first investor would leave, and that would leave me with nothing. And I always do not really believe in waiting. So so I just started with, we had almost enough to just shoot, and we shot on the iPhone, and our equipment is sponsored by an Apple reseller here in Macau. So we were able to save a lot of money, and we were able to make our dollars stretch really far. That's another thing about like Macau. Like when I film here, I feel like my small budget can achieve a lot. With that same kind of budget, if I film in a place like America, I would achieve maybe 10 times less than I did because I filmed in Macau.
Why is that? Is in terms of the team you have, or the space, the transportation, I'm guessing, because it's such a small place? It's around that? It
is all of those. So also, like for example, if you film in America, there's the union, and there's a lot of rules that you cannot get around. So in Macau, the rules are less. And also, like I said, it's just naturally more cinematic. A lot of Macau is just very cinematic. So a lot of the times, like in Sea of Mirrors, even like a lot of the scenes, we were not really improvising, but we were improvising the location. So and that helped us a lot. Yeah.
The Sea of Movies you mentioned already, it was fully filmed on an iPhone.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to film on an iPhone?
So between the release of Roulette City and shooting of Sea of Mirrors, it was 4 years. And in these 4 years, I had several scripts come out, but then I couldn't get enough funding to shoot any of them, which is very normal for any filmmaker. But I decided that 4 years was enough to wait already, and I had to shoot a film. So when that happens, when I decide that I have to shoot a film, usually I approach it in a different way than starting from a script. Usually filmmakers start from a script, and then they try to get funding and resources to make that story into a film. But that's a very difficult process, because no matter how you look at it, making a film costs a lot of money. And it's money that no no one person can easily take out from his pocket. So when I decided I have to shoot a film already, like I don't want to wait anymore. What I do then is I look at the resources that I have in terms of money, people, and location, mainly these three, and I put these three ingredients together and try to form the best story for it. Because if I create the story with the resources in mind, then the chances of shooting it is very high because I already know what my limitations are.
Yeah.
But then the flaw of that would be the story is sometimes not really strong. So, and when the story has fundamental problems, these problems cannot be solved later because you shot with all these problems, because you started with all these problems. But then, at the end, I still get a film. It may not be the best film it may not be the film that I envisioned when I first started the project. But then there is still a film and there's still work that I generated. And once you always have work and once you always have projects coming up, you always meet new people that can help you make your next project. My goal of making every film is to make yet another film. So that's always been the goal.
So do you think by using the iPhone that would spark the curiosity of people and make people go, how is this possible?
Yeah. So shooting on an iPhone is still kind of a new thing in Asia. So, I mean, I knew that it was going to be low budget because I started shooting with less than half of my budget in place. I decided that I was going to use that limitation to help my film, as opposed to try to pretend it's a big film. So I was considering between three lower-level cameras, and I decided that the iPhone was going to create the most talking point, and it did. So even today, I mean, at first I thought it was just a starting point for people to talk about my film. But as I went along, I realized that the collaborators that I found along the way, a lot of them came in because they were very curious about working with an iPhone film. Like even like the colorist at the very final stage, the color grading process. The colorist was telling me like, he has always color graded 35mm film movies. And now he was really looking forward to working with me because he wanted to challenge himself to color an iPhone film to look good on a big screen. So the iPhone, the fact that I used the iPhone, I felt had always helped me every step along. Even today, we're still talking about it.
Yeah,
right here.
and it was just so everyone knows, it was an iPhone 6. Which it's
6S.
6S.
And
okay,
7.
so it's not it wasn't at the time, probably was the most recent.
Yes.
But sometimes people pick up their iPhone 6 or 6S today and they go like, oh, this quality of image is terrible. So what did you exactly use? It was the iPhone. I know you used the gimbal. More technical, let's get a little bit geek here. What were the technical instruments you had?
So I had the iPhone. So Original Technology, this Apple reseller in Macau, I know the boss very well, and they sponsored all our equipment. So first they gave us they lent us 4 iPhones.
Okay.
And we always went with the first one first, so we call it number 1, and then when it runs out of memory or battery, then we go to the second one.
Okay.
So it was the 6S. At the time, when we shot in Macau, it was 6S. I shot 21 days in Macau and 5 days in LA. So the 5 days in LA was iPhone 7.
Okay.
Because it was the following year. So the Macau part was completely on the 6S, but it already had 4K resolution. The 6S had 4K resolution, naturally. We bought an app called Filmic Pro. It was about $10 US. And that app made a lot of difference.
Okay.
So that app made it look more film-like, in my opinion. And then the Original Technology, the Apple reseller, also gave us things like lights and also lenses. Those helped a bit, and the gimbal was also provided by them. So we had very simple equipment. The store boss, his name is Albert, so Original Technology, the boss's name is Albert. Albert's goal was the same as mine. He wanted to show Macau that a serious feature film can be shot with equipment completely from his shop. And I wanted to show young filmmakers, including Macau filmmakers, that you can shoot a film on anything today. There's no reason for you to not shoot a film because you have an iPhone. And today they have an iPhone 10, which is much better than my iPhone 6S. So,
would you do that again? Would you film again in an iPhone?
Well, I mean, even if I film again on a mobile phone, like I don't think I would use it as so much of a talking point. Like, yeah, because I think this kind of thing could probably be used only once.
Okay.
Yeah.
with this movie, the goal is getting, like any other movie you make, and you keep talking about it, to get into festivals. You've mentioned before the Macau International Film Festival. What's the situation right now with that?
Well, I think the goal of, for me, I'm still kind of an old school guy. So when I make a feature film, the goal is actually to get a commercial release. So usually what people do is they go through festivals, and then they try to win awards at festivals. And then with those awards, they might interest exhibitors, which means cinema owners, to give them a commercial release. So I try all my ways at the same time. So I reach out to my distributors, I reach out to my friends who work at cinemas, not only in Macau, but especially this region in East Asia. And I try to get some kind of a release for my film. I have a distributor now in Macau. They're called 1220, so it's 1220 Film Distribution. They are going to help. They have actually brought Sea of Mirrors around to the film markets around the world. And we are hoping that we can get a commercial release outside of tomorrow's debut at the festival at Cinematheque. And then at the same time, I was recently in Taiwan. I was talking to distributors there, and so hopefully I can get some kind of my goal is a commercial release, and then maybe later on sell it to Netflix or something. Yeah.
All right. Well, Macau Cinematheque Passion tomorrow. It's on the 24th tomorrow, and then 29th of May.
Yeah.
Are you excited? What do you expect from this debut?
I don't know. So I'm just happy that Macau audiences can see it. The film is a Macau film, and this is like a home premiere for the film. I'm happy that the actress will come tomorrow as well, and one of the executive producers, he's from here, so he'll be there and I'll be there. So it's a good chance for us to get together again. And by coincidence, I was in Singapore recently, so I could come quite easily for the screening as well to give a Q&A. So I'm just happy that whenever a film is put together and is released for the first time, it's a small miracle, because it takes there's so many moving parts when you try to make a film, and when it moves in a manner where it manifests into a screening, to me, that's a small miracle. Yeah.
We are now going to show a little clip of the movie, Sea of Mirrors.
俺の名前は中村夏樹。俺はマカオにいるリリのストーリーを書き、世界中のファンから映画のアイデアを募っていたハリウッド女優イザベル・チェスターのもとに脚本を提出した。Lily Kondo was an award-winning Japanese actress, but after she had her kid, her career began to fall. She still had fans in China. Soon, she was offered an opportunity to meet a rich fan, a Chinese man. Lily took the kid. They went to Macau.
ちゃんとここで待ってなさい。すぐ戻ってくるから。
Let's make a deal.
マカオ警察と協力して。
I'll help you find Nana,
私のこと好きですか？
but you have to come work in the club with me.
Marry me.
Could you tell me how this...
Straight. Be professional. Don't do this for a sex object. Not today.
Western girls, like me, don't like so much foreplay.
You are blonde and beautiful.
A psychological thriller, that's the label at least that it has. Do you have a favorite genre? Do you think about the genre when you're doing the movies?
Not really. In fact, the reason why it's a psychological thriller in terms of genre, I was trying to fit the genre into what I think the footage would look from filming on an iPhone.
Okay.
So on an iPhone, you get more gritty kind of texture. So the texture is a bit rougher on the iPhone because to be honest, it's a weaker camera than a regular film camera. Of course, it's a weaker camera. So I don't think, for example, a romantic comedy should be shot on an iPhone because it's going to look too rough.
The color.
The color and just the resolution. So the look just looks a bit grittier than, just look a lot grittier than the texture is more grainy than a regular film camera. So that's another thing that I would say, when you shoot an iPhone, maybe think about the story and try to fit in with what the iPhone image makes it look like. I tried to put the subject of shooting on an iPhone into the film, but I don't think I don't think that really worked.
Okay.
So, if I did it again,
Still there.
still there, yeah. So if I did it again if I did something again, if I did a feature film again on an iPhone, I think that should be in the story that this thing was shot on an iPhone, and this element is part of the story of the film. That would be great.
Yes, the movie is about a movie also. No? It has some of the parts of it is an actress that thinks she will become famous again.
Right.
But you also act in the movie.
Just a very small part, yeah.
Yeah.
I did a small part.
You did the same before, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Why do you put yourself in front of the camera when you're directing?
So for Roulette City, I played the lead, and that was because it was a smaller budget. It was a much smaller budget film, and I just didn't have money to hire somebody who could give me 3 weeks of his time and who was experienced in acting. And at the time, before that, I was an actor, so I felt sharp as an actor. That was Roulette City. Sea of Mirrors, I just didn't find the suitable actor for that part, and it's a small part, but the schedule, because the difficult thing about, I would say the difficult thing about filming in Macau is that a lot of them only have free time at certain times. People who are interested to act in your film because they have other things to do, they have jobs and all that. And one of the most difficult things is to match everyone's schedule. So you always have to go with the bigger roles. So their schedule is more important because they have bigger roles. So I played the smaller part because that part, I couldn't get anyone's schedule to really fit whatever schedules that's already been fixed. Okay. And obviously I'm always there on set, so I thought I'll just do it.
No, just take advantage of it.
Yes.
Do you think it will become a trend? You're gonna start doing that in all your feature movies?
No, I think actually the next one I might start to just not be in it at all. I'm really trying to not be in it at all.
But do you miss acting?
A little bit, yeah. In fact, you know what's interesting? I'll share something interesting with you. Like in America, I live in Los Angeles now, and somebody approached me recently to do a web series to play this role of Satoshi Nakamoto, the founder of Bitcoin. Okay. Nobody knows how he looks like, and we don't even know if he's Japanese or if he's even a person. So somebody approached me in America to play a younger version of what she thinks Satoshi Nakamoto, this founder of Bitcoin, looks like. And I thought that was a really interesting offer. And I'm looking at the script now. I think I'll take it.
Oh,
really
that is
interesting
awesome.
offer. Yeah.
That is awesome. Congratulations. We hope we'll see you soon.
So when an
in that
interesting
role.
offer like that comes around, like I really consider it. Yeah.
You've been in various places. You're now living in LA.
Yeah.
Do you feel any differences between making films in other countries or being in other countries in the film industry in relation to Macau or mainland China?
Yes, definitely. So being in America works in a completely different system than anywhere else that I've been. So China also works very differently than Macau and America. China is a very big market on its own right now. Macau is a relatively much smaller place. The market is really small, so it has its advantages and disadvantages. In America, the unions and the agencies control Hollywood. So it's a lot to learn in America. So productions always have a lot of lawyers, and they have a lot of representation in terms of managers, agents, and lawyers. So it's a whole different ball game. Like anything below like $3 million as a feature film in the US is considered a low budget film, and it has a much smaller fighting chance with all the films that's made in America. And also, so the industries are just completely, it's a very broad topic, but the industries are just very different. And I just feel like maybe as a filmmaker, what we have to think is, where do we go to tell the story that we really want to tell? And also, maybe with limited resources, where do we go? You should always choose a place where the community is supportive of you to make the film.
And that would be Macau for you at this time.
Yes.
But you're still interested in Hollywood like you were before.
Well, actually, I'm representing I'm the LA representation of a Hong Kong film company now.
Okay.
So that's changed a lot for me. That's opened a lot of Hollywood doors for me, and it has exposed me to a lot of situations that's happening in Hollywood. And so I'm learning a lot. But having said that, I would still want to make at least one more feature film in Macau in the coming, let's say, in the coming 2 years. I don't have the story yet, but I imagine it will be something along the lines of like my relationship with Macau. I've known Macau for 16 years now, and I've seen it change from what it was before to what it is today. And I have a number of things to say about that. I just have to create a story around it to tell the story. Yeah.
Well, more to be filmed here, and we will definitely be here to see and to receive you always. Thank you so much for being with us on the show. Thank you. So Thomas Lim's Sea of Mirrors can be seen this Friday and next Wednesday, the 29th, at Cinematheque Passion at 9:30 p.m. As for us, this is all the time we've got for tonight. Catch us next week for more TDM Talk Show.